After a solid stretch of baseball, the Chicago White Sox are back to being MLB's get-right team. Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts and leave a 5-star review. Well, the White Sox lost to the Toronto Blue Jays 9-3 yesterday. 9 runs, 9 times. I'll discuss how the Sox were once again that team you want to face to get things back on track. Then let's discuss Pedro Grifol's latest puzzling comment. And finally, are the White Sox back to being the worst team in baseball? Yes, they are. Then we'll go over the latest Locked On Power Rankings. And this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, so the Blue Jays have not won consecutive games since late April. And Bo Bichette, the Blue Jays all-star infielder, he was in a major slump to start the season. And in fact, the Jays offense was terrible. Jose Barrios, he kept getting no decisions. Well, pretty much the Blue Jays needed to get right opponent, and they got it in the Chicago White Sox. And I've talked about it before. The Sox are the unofficial get right team in Major League Baseball. And we may have forgotten it because remember the Sox had that 11-8 stretch. But now they've lost 4 games in a row. And Bo Bichette had himself a day against the White Sox. He had 4 hits, 3 doubles, and an RBI and a run scored. Consider his slump busted. The Toronto Blue Jays all-star infielder entered the contest with a 211, 273, 298 slash line. Yeah, those numbers are up now after the 4 hits. His OPS is now over 600. Now, Bichette, and I talked about it on yesterday's show, he was showing glimpses of breaking out of that slump. Over the past 7 days, his average was, his 7-day average was over 270, and his on-base percentage was over 380. So he was showing signs, but man, did he break out in a huge, huge way. And only the White Sox offense produces less runs than the Jays, but Toronto's offense looked better than the Yankees offense did against the White Sox over the weekend. Remember, the Yankees put up 17 runs. The Jays are already halfway towards outproducing them against the White Sox. Danny Jansen destroyed the Sox arms, even more than what Bichette did. Jansen had 5 RBIs, including a 2-run blast in the 7th inning that pretty much effectively ended the game. It was actually the first home run of the season that Jordan Leisure gave up. And Danny Jansen, he has a 1.079 OPS, 397 on base percentage, 681 slugging. Okay, the White Sox leading OPS, at least among players who are on the opening day roster, Corey Lee with 793. So just think about that. Just imagine if the White Sox had a player like Danny Jansen. Imagine if the White Sox had a catching duo like Danny Jansen and Corey Lee. But instead, we have Martin Maldonado. The Jays entered this game 24th in average, 18th in on-base percentage, 25th in slugging, 27th in home runs, 27th in homers, and 29th in runs. Now they're 22nd in average, 16th in on base, 22nd in slug, 25th in homers, and are 37 runs ahead of the White Sox in runs scored. Because only the White Sox scored the least amount of runs next to the Jays. So one game, they've already climbed a couple spots, at least offensively, in the major league rankings. And again, it's one game. I get it. But it shows you if you need to get right, just play the White Sox anemic offense. And the other reason why, again, one game, it's in May. We know it's a bad season. But the reason why it's just a little tough to watch was this was not supposed to happen in this game. Not with Eric Fetty on the mound. The Sox had won the last 4 games he started before yesterday's loss. But he was not very effective. Gave up 5 runs and 7 hits over 6 innings of work. He was unable to be the stopper of the rotation that we've seen over the last 4 games. Also kind of hard to see because Paul DeJong was denied a win in his revenge game. Yes, Paul DeJong went back to Toronto where he was traded last season by the Cardinals, and he was terrible for Toronto. To the point that they released him. He goes to the Giants. DeJong went 3 for 4 with a homer, 2 runs, and 2 RBIs. He's the White Sox leader in home runs now with 7. And he was denied a W. And he was about the only bright spot offensively. Nicky Lopez also had a good game. Couple of hits. But the Sox continue to be the unofficial get-right team of Major League Baseball. The offense is terrible. The defense is terrible. The White Sox are terrible. But at least Garrett Crochet pitches tonight. He has been, along with Fetty, one of the stud pitchers that the Sox have, one of the bright spots that the Sox have, and they could really, really use Garrett Crochet pitching well tonight. Because otherwise, this brutal 39-game stretch of baseball is going to have probably trending towards a bad losing streak. Right now it's 4. If the White Sox want to avoid being historically bad, they need to at least avoid prolonged losing streaks. So hopefully Garrett Crochet can stop the bleeding. Well, speaking of bad, Pedro Grifol, he's no stranger to making bad comments, and he made one again that is especially frustrating. Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox. Hey, LinkedIn is more than just a place to network and showcase your resume. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's right, LinkedIn is more than just being useful in a job search. LinkedIn does more than just helping you build your professional network as well. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is there for professionals to effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Want to find the right buyers? Sales Navigator shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. And why not use a platform that has over 1 billion users? Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at LinkedIn.com/lockedon. Again, that's LinkedIn.com/lockedon. One more time, LinkedIn.com/lockedon. For a 60-day free trial, let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Again, just go to LinkedIn.com/lockedon and get started. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the White Sox face the Blue Jays in the second game of a 3-game set. First pitch is at 6:07 Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. And thank you for making the show your first listen. Lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. Again, I just hope I'm the first one you take in. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button. Also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And leave a 5-star review. Well, Pedro Grifol made another, I would say, beyond head-scratching comment. So Daryl Van Schouwen at CST_Sox fan tweeted this out, the Chicago Sun-Times beat writer. Grifol on Dominic Fletcher, who hasn't had an AB since return. Quote, Gavin is hitting third, Pham is hitting first, and Benny is a consistent pillar in our lineup. He'll come in for defense and do some stuff. He has to wait for an opportunity and take advantage of it, end quote. I'm going to repeat, Benny is a consistent pillar in our lineup. All right, first let's pause because I want to give Pedro at least a flower because he said something brilliant and deserves credit. He actually, Skowron had this tweet out, Grifol on Keller. Quote, he threw good for us out of the pen. We wanted to see him in the rotation, saw him twice. We wanted to go in a different direction, end quote. Make more comments like that, Pedro. It was to the point. We understood why you wanted to get rid of Brad Keller, why he was designated for assignment. He got an opportunity. He didn't do well. He's gone. All you had to say with Andrew Benintendi, instead of saying he's a pillar of the lineup, all you had to say was there's a financial commitment sunk into Benintendi. We got to see it through. Makes sense. But if Benintendi is a pillar, well, no wonder why this building is crumbling. Benintendi has the worst OPS among regulars at 494. That is 162 of 162 players that qualify to be ranked in OPS. Andrew Vaughn, probably the other assumed pillar, he's 159 with a 555 OPS. Benintendi is struggling big time. His slash line in May is 158, 183, 211. He is 9 for 57 this month. That's one of your pillars, White Sox fans. His runners in scoring position slash line for the season is 182, 178, 341. Does that sound like the production of a pillar? He isn't a pillar. He's a poster boy for why this team is so bad. He got the richest free agent contract ever in team history, which was well under $100 million. And he looks lost at the plate. And again, they gave the richest contract in free agent history to a non-power hitting left fielder. You want to see how you want an example of how he negatively impacted yesterday's game? Top of the second, Eloy leads off the inning with a single. Benny comes up and promptly hits into a double play. Guess what happens next? Paul DeYoung, he gets on base with a hit, and Corey Lee drives him in. So instead of leaving the inning with 2 runs, if Benintendi was just able to get Eloy over, the Sox leave with 1. And the Sox have such a small margin for error, that adds up. And it did, because bottom 2, Bo Bichette hits his first double. And how does he reach base and get with that double? Andrew Benintendi was playing him deep. Now the ball caromed to the foul line. And hey, it's a smart play to play Bichette deep, even if he's struggling. Bichette's going to crush the ball. But the problem is Benintendi just doesn't have the athleticism to cover the ground. So even if he's hauling like he was, he's not going to make that catch. And he did try to make a sliding catch. Instead, it lands for a double. And Bichette later scores on Varsho's home run. Please, Pedro, understand that Benintendi is not a pillar. He's a pillar in contract only. I get why you have to make it work. But that's the other thing. If Dominic Fletcher is there to play defense, you have Corey Julks as the fourth outfielder. And eventually, Luis Robert Jr. is going to return. Hopefully, we haven't heard much. So now you're wasting Dominic Fletcher's time. And again, if you don't think he's the right fielder of the future, send him down. Bury him just like you've done with Oscar Colas. And I get why Gavin Sheets has to play. But again, if you got Andrew Vaughn, who's been playing a little bit better lately, but he's still trending towards having a bad season, you might want to really look at how you're deploying Gavin Sheets. And I know Gavin Sheets has not been raking like he did to start the season, but guess what? He gets on base. And for a team that, doesn't have many guys getting on base, you need Andrew Vaughn. You need Gavin Sheets in the lineup. What you should be doing is giving Andrew Benintendi that phantom injury. Hey, Andrew, you look like you're limping a little bit. Hamstring okay? Hey, is that wrist still hurting you? Why don't you take 10 days off? I think you need to do that phantom 10-day stint. Let him work in the cage. Let him figure out something, because right now he just looks lost at the plate. He has definitely been an automatic out. Obviously, you're not going to be able to DFA him. There's just too much money owed on that contract. You can't lay Uri Garcia him. Jerry's not going to authorize that one. But Corey Julks had an amazing game in New York on Sunday, but he has to go back to the bench because Andrew Benintendi's a pillar. And I saw somebody tweet out like the pillar of a rusted out pillar somewhere. That's what Andrew Benintendi is. He's a rusted out pillar. And no wonder why things are collapsing. Well, speaking of collapse, obviously the White Sox have fallen down the power rankings after this recent stretch of bad baseball. And let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. And if your skill is picking more or less, you can turn $10 into $100 with just a few taps. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch those winnings roll in. The beauty is you can pick a flex play where you still win if one of your picks misses. But if you want those higher payouts, you can go with the power play, meaning if both selections are correct, it's more coin in your pocketbook. Garrett Crochet, he's on the mound for the White Sox today. Prize Picks is asking you, basically, do you think he will dominate on the mound? And really, that's what it comes down to. The more or less number on his Ks is 6.5 as of this recording. Blue Jays have the second fewest strikeouts, so, could go either way. The runs allowed is 2.5. Garrett has given up just 1 run this month. And the best play, I would say, is to go more with the 4.5 hits. Danny Jansen and Vlad Jr. are just too good, and Bo Bichette is breaking out of his slump. So that would be the play there. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And hey, the White Sox face the Toronto Blue Jays in the second game of a 3-game set. First pitch is at 6:07 Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And again, if you've stuck with me this long, really appreciate it. Appreciate you everydayers. It's been a rough season. I was watching yesterday's game, and I had to message Herb and Herb Lawrence, and I also messaged Nick Markowski, our past host, and I was like, "This is just painful to watch. This was hurting the eyes." At least the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning when the bullpen collapsed. And again, the White Sox, why it hurts is because the White Sox are back to being considered the worst team in baseball, especially according to my colleagues at Locked On. For those listening on the traditional podcast, I've got the Locked On MLB Power Rankings voted on by my fellow hosts. And on YouTube, as you can see, the White Sox are 30th. And obviously, if you can't see, I just told you, the White Sox are the 30th ranked team. They are nowhere near the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm a little surprised the Colorado Rockies are 27th, just a little bit ahead of the Angels. Marlins are 29th. Cardinals, the Blue Jays, who the Sox are playing, they came in at 25th. But my colleagues aren't the only one who thinks the White Sox are currently the worst team in baseball. Bleacher Report just put out their power rankings. The Sox are 30th after being 28th last week. MLB.com, yeah, they have them at 30th. CBS Sports also has the White Sox dead last. So everyone agrees the Sox are the worst. But here's what makes it hard. We still have four more months to go. But really what makes it hard is the Marlins have already punted on the season. The Marlins have already put up the white flag. And Colorado might be the only team that could say they have a worse roster. And yet somehow the White Sox are even worse than the Rockies. And why are they so bad? Especially after they, got off to that 11-8 stretch after that terrible 3-22 start. Well, first, the schedule right now, again, the Sox are in that just brutal 39-game stretch of schedule. It's hard to beat the Yankees. Even if the Sox are a mediocre team, the Yankees are the best team in the American League. But what makes it really tough right now is it's the Sox offense. They just don't hit home runs. For some reason, they're going with contact and defense. And that is why we should be afraid, because contact and defense still doesn't score runs. Also, why should we be afraid? Is this what the Chris Getz regime is going for? Are they trying to be this contact team and focus on run prevention? I get if you want to focus on run prevention if you're cutting payroll. If you're, say, the Tampa Bay Rays or the Milwaukee Brewers, you go with pitching and defense. Because at least you can keep guys off the board. The Cleveland Guardians have been doing that for a while. Keep guys off the board, get some timely hits. Makes sense. But then also get players then that can run the bases well. The Sox don't have that. And there's also nothing wrong with going for contact if you have an 0-2 count or 1-2 count. That's the only time I believe you need to make the exception of not launching the ball. You're behind in the count in those 2 counts. Shorten up the swing, get the ball in play. Go the opposite way. Figure out whatever you need to do to get on base, or at least to keep fouling off pitches to drive the pitch count up. But otherwise, any other count, drive that ball. Hit doubles, hit triples, hit home runs. But the White Sox do not do that. How do I know that? Paul DeJong has 7 home runs on the season, and he's leading the team. Andrew Vaughn looks like a guy who's just, he's hitting the ball a little bit harder, but he's still not really lifting it. Eloy Jimenez, He always seems to put the ball on the ground. Get it in the air. Now, I know it's a little bit harder when a guy is throwing a 95-mile-an-hour fastball at you, but still, get it in the air. Launch it. Ball go far, team go far. That was the only thing I agreed with Rick Hahn on. I just always say, with the exception, again, 0-2, 1-2. Then, hey, let's just get that ball in play. That should be the only time. Situational hitting. Be a team that can crush the ball, that understands situational hitting, and runs the base as well. That is what makes great offenses. And right now, the White Sox have the worst offense. It's painful to watch. And especially if they make one mistake during a rally, it's killed. It's like they already know, yep, it's over. And, they can talk about, they've even talked about it on the TV broadcast. I believe it's John Triffin said, like, this team, they're not quitting, obviously, but if they get down by a few runs, they start to question, can they come back? And they can't, because they don't hit the ball far. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Before I go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And I'll be back tomorrow discussing Garrett Crochet's recent outing. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button and give a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. And let me know your thoughts on today's topics regarding the Sox going back to being the get right team of MLB, Pedro Grifol's terrible comment about Andrew Benintendi, and the Sox being dead last in the power rankings. You can leave them on Twitter at ToddJDub or email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.